Hello everyone, I'm Bill. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a video on war magic. It's going to be 5th level arcane spells, I do believe. Yep. And we're going to go into the 5th level spells, find out what spells are pre-built to be war type spells meant to affect massive areas, massive people, or we will dive into some of the spells and go, well, if you give this as a one-use item, this might be able to change the flow of a battle. Or if you give this as a multiple one-use items through your military, this could really change the tide of a battle. Because whenever you think medieval battle, you think of sword, shield, spears, guys on horses, so on and so forth, duking it out. So magic, if added to that, should change how a battlefield goes quite quickly. In addition to that, the divine versions are also applicable. We are using the core rulebook for Pathfinder 1E. After this 5th level spell for Arcane, my next video in this series will be for the divine of the same level, and then I'll go up to 6th level spells of both, and then we will pick up a different book and go into the spells of wizards and divine casters out of those as well to go through all the war magic. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, break enchantment. Free subjects from enchantments, transmutations, and curses. Break enchantment would be good if you have a vast quantity of your army affected by transmutations, enchantments, and curses. But when you cast this or get this used as a one-use item from, say, a scroll, it only works on one character per caster level. So you'd be at least 11th level to cast this. So you're looking at 11 targets, which could make the difference. Not saying it can't, but it's, as far as mass warfare, it's not that great. Dismissal forces a creature to return to its native plane. If you're fighting lots of extra planar creatures, this can be very useful. Mage's Private Sanctum prevents anyone from viewing or scrying an area for 24 hours. Now that is great to cast if you're going to do a lot of battle planning and you don't want anyone to be able to scry in that you know would be trying to scry in. Even if you don't know who or what, you know somebody might try to learn what you're up to. That'd be great to protect your information planning. Cloud Kill kills 3 hit dice or less. 4 to 6 hit dice save or die. 6+ hit dice take con damage. Now, is Cloud Kill a single person or is it an area? Let's look it up. Cloud Kill range is medium, 100 feet plus 10 feet per level, so okay range. Cloud spreads in a 20-foot radius, 20 foot high. So it is a radius and it does have height to it. So it's almost like a 20-foot sphere or a 20-foot cylinder, almost a 20-foot cylinder. So for most of your military forces, it lasts 1 minute per level. So if they have to march through this, you're going to take out a vast majority of people before they stop and start retreating or taking heed of this. And this thing moves. So unlike Fog Cloud, Cloud Cloud moves away from you at 10 feet per round, rolling along the surface of the ground. So, and since it kills 3 hit dice or fewer creatures with no save, you're looking at an inexperienced army being wiped out by a Cloud Kill, or at least a portion of that army being wiped out by a Cloud Kill. and it has to have 6 hit dice. Well, 4 to 6 hit dice. And it has to make it save. If it has more than 6 hit dice, it only takes Constitution damage. If it fails. But it has everything that's in the cloud has to make the save every turn if it's given a save. But if you're immune to poison, you're unaffected by it. So if you're fighting creatures that are very different than the regular creatures that are in the core rulebook, then you're looking at you might have a military that you're using against that are immune. Say, I don't see using this against an army of undead as being helpful, or elementals or constructs. But against living creatures, specifically ones that are not immune to poison, this would be very good to devastate an army. Mage's Faithful Hound. That is good to set up if you expect strike forces to come in or spies to come in to get stuff. Phantom Dog can guard a location and attack intruders, so they won't even know it's there until it attacks, so that'd be even better. Major Creation. Me and my friends have a hack for Major Creation. You use Major Creation and Permanency, and your mage can have infinite funds. Let's read it, and I'll go over it for you, and you will be very impressed by this. And we developed this in full a couple of years ago. So if you're a player trying to raise an army, if you can get access to Major Creation and Permanency, there is no way you will not have the funds you need. Now, as a game master, I'd put limitations of what they could use the funds for, but that would just be so that way they're not super overpowerful for what you want to use. Unlike my current party in my Sunday game, who is equipped like 20th level players, so they're fighting creatures that are at least challenge rating 10 or higher, just to be a challenge to them because of their equipment. But if they take a hit, they're almost killed, if not killed. So Major Creation takes 10 minutes. Casting time wouldn't matter in the application you're trying to use it, because you're not trying to use this for a fight, you're trying to use this to fund a fight. You can create objects of mineral nature, stone, crystal, metal, or the like. The duration of the created item varies with its relative hardness and rarity, as indicated in the following table. Vegetable matter, it lasts 2 hours per level. Stone, crystal, base metals, 1 hour per level. Precious metals, 20 minutes per level. Gems, 10 minutes per level. Rare metal, 1 round per level. And you just need its duration to last long enough for you to cast permanency on it, and now it's permanent. But now I need to look at Minor Creation to give you the quantities you can create. Minor Creation. Casting time is 1 minute, so casting time is faster. You can affect unattended non-magical objects of non-living plant matter up to 1 cubic feet per level. So it's a cubic foot per level. So you're creating a cubic foot per level of, say, diamond dust, which you need for permanency. Now you got a cubic foot of diamond dust per level, so 11 cubic feet of diamond dust. You make that permanent, now you have the material you need for permanency from there on until that runs low, and then you just create this again, cast permanency again, now you have that material again. From there, you cast this again, even if you had to wait the next day, you cast this again the next day. You could create gems you need to fund your military. You could create gold, you could create copper, you could create iron just to fund the forges. So with that, you can fund a military. So any wizard that doesn't take Major Creation and Permanency isn't looking at funding anything. Now, it's Conjuration, so if your Conjuration isn't your school, that's a different story. But if you don't take a penalty to having Conjuration, you should be fine. So let's go on. Planar Binding Lesser traps extra planar creature of 6 hit dice or less until it performs a task. That can be useful if you can get access to a few of those. And the task could be very simple. Go kill that battlefield commander. Either they'll be successful or they won't. Go retrieve this item. They'll be successful or they won't. So that can be used to an advantage, but it in and of itself would not turn the tide of battle unless it was successful in killing a commander. Secret Chest hides expensive chest on ethereal plane. You retrieve it at will. Now that can be useful because that can keep all your secret documents that you're using for your battle plans, your maps, everything else off of the material plane. So those that would normally seek it out, that would be, say, a normal adventurers or a normal strike force that would go after, so a group of party members that would go after it, wouldn't usually have means to get to ethereal plane to take it. So, and they wouldn't know to look there to begin with. Summon Monster 5, that's useful because you can start summoning more elementals of lower levels or a really big creature of that level. And that can just tear into an army. Now, the more weaker creatures is more beneficial just because of the size of an army. You wouldn't want, unless the creature is going to be very devastating, so like Summon Monster 7, unless it's going to be very devastating, I wouldn't put a lot of faith in summoning one. I'd try to summon 2 or more. Teleport instantly transports you as far as 100 miles per level. Great for retreating, great for attacking. You give teleport to just 20 guys on horseback that could teleport now to the other side of the army, and it's run into them. Now you can attack that army from any direction. That can be very useful, and that can help you a whole lot. You just need to give them one-use items, probably about twice as expensive as a scroll would be my guess. There's an actual formula for calculating one-use items. Wall of Stone creates a stone wall that can be shaped. That'd be great to cause the enemy to have to go in a specific direction. You take the open battlefield and all of a sudden you've casted this wall that the enemy is approaching. Instead of your shield wall, they're now approaching a physical wall, and the wall extends up to even a rock side or real high side of a hill, but there's an open section in this valley, which is where you want them to go, but it's also the easiest path for them to go. From there, you could set you up a kill zone all throughout there. So you would just need access to a few one-use items that can create the Wall of Stone, or a couple of casters that can do it. Contact other planes lets you ask questions of extraplanar entity. That can be useful if you're fighting extraplanar creatures to get you the information you need, but most extraplanar entities don't know enough to help you on a basic level with an actual war. They're better at more adventure style information. Prying eyes. That's a great way to scout, especially a cave complex or a actual fort, because when you cast Prying Eyes, you get 1d4 plus 1 per level floating eye that scouts for you. Telepathic Bond. Link lets allies communicate. That's a great way to share information as a party. And if you all were individual commanders in a military, that'd be a great way for y'all to communicate quickly and effectively to change how the battle's going. I would say if you all could use that, I would give you all an advantage on your maneuvers, because you'd be able to respond to the enemy clearer because you can communicate instantly, where you don't have to give a communication, then it'd be acted out. Dominate Person allows you to controls humanoid telepathically. but it says humanoid, so it's a single target, so that's not going to be beneficial on a massive battle. Feeble mind, subject's intelligence charisma drops to 1. That's a great spell as is, but it's not good for a battle. Now, if you could throw that into an area effect, then it would become more useful. Hold monster as hold person, but any creature. It's okay, but as a battlefield thing, then again, no. Now, if you can get a military coming down a 5-foot area, and you just cast hold monster on the first person, now they have to get past that first person or first creature to get to you. So that could slow an army down in that condition, but as an actual military application, not much can be used for it. Mind fog. Subjects in fog get -10 to wisdom and will checks. So let's look at that one up. Range, medium, 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. Fog spreads in a 20-foot radius, 20 foot high. Okay, so then again, it's almost like a cylinder. Duration's 30 minutes and 2d6 rounds. So you could get that up to 31 minutes. That can last a good long time. Mind fog produces a bank of thin mist that weakens the mental resistance of those caught in it. Creatures in the mind fog take a -10 penalty on wisdom checks and will saves. A creature that successfully saves against the fog is not affected and need not make further saves even if it remains in the fog. Affected creatures take the penalty as long as they remain in the fog and for 2d6 rounds thereafter. So that's the 2d6 and the 2d6 rounds. Okay. The fog is stationary and lasts for 30 minutes or until dissipated by wind. So a gust of wind spell could destroy this. Just note that. A moderate wind, 11 miles per hour, disperses the fog in 4 rounds. A strong wind, 21 miles or more per hour, disperses the fog in 1 round. The fog is thin and does not significantly hamper vision. Now, the best thing to do would be combine mind fog area into a narrow area where they have to come through it, and then use a fear effect, like cause fear. Just something that could really shaken them, and because they're at that -10, they're really not going to be able to resist something quite as well. So that could be very useful, especially if you're trying to shake the morale of your enemy's forces. Symbol of sleep. Triggered rune puts nearby creatures into catatonic slumber. Let's look at that one. See how many creatures. Symbol of sleep. Will negates. This functions like symbol of death, except that all creatures of 10 hit dice or less within 60 feet of the symbol of sleep instead fall into a catatonic slumber for 3d6 times 10 minutes. So anywhere from 3 to 24, 240. So from 30 to 240 minutes. No, 180 minutes. Sorry, my math's off. Unlike the sleep spell, sleeping creatures cannot be awakened by non-magical means before this time expires. Now that is potent. Unlike Symbol of Death, Symbol of Sleep has no hit point limit. Once triggered, a Symbol of Sleep simply remains active for 10 minutes per caster level. Okay, so that's at least 110 minutes. Okay, and then it tells you a trap like this would be hard to find. DC is like 30 for a rogue to use perception and disable device to disable it. So that can be very useful. And it's all creatures within 60 feet of it that have 10 hit dice or less. So you put that in the right spot for a battlefield, you're going to take out a big chunk of an army. That right there could change a battle by itself. Cone of Cold, area effect does cold damage. That could destroy a huge chunk of army. Now, if you give one-use items, say a cone of cold stick to a few of your soldiers with the command word and the use magic device capabilities to activate it. If even 2 or 3 of them are successful, that's a section of army, a section of army, and a section of army that's just taking all this cold damage that might just be wiped out. And that can really cause the enemy to then make a morale check and try to see if they're going to stay in the fight. If the enemy is big enough, they might. If they're made of monsters, they might. If they assume everyone in the enemy's military can now use spells, they might flee even faster. Interposing hand. Hand provides cover against one opponent. Limits it to one opponent. Not that useful. Sending. Delivers short message anywhere instantly. That's useful for communications, so I'd say that's useful. Wall of Force. Wall is immune to damage, so there again. Wall of Stone, Wall of Force, both would be very useful to corral your enemies into the direction you want, or to put in front of your enemies as you make your retreat. Dream sends message to anyone sleeping. Can be useful to communicate with your fellow soldiers when they're marching to your camp. But it says anyone sleeping, so if you can't target an individual, it might not be useful. False Vision fools the scrying with an illusion. That's great if you know your enemies are scrying on you. Mirage Arcana as hallucinatory terrain plus structures. So that's great for making your battlefield look the way it isn't. And then you can hide some of your traps under the Mirage. Nightmare sends vision, dealing 1d10 damage and fatigue. But that's a single target. I know that. Persist image as major image, but with no concentration required. That can be okay to kind of confuse the enemy, but it's not great. Seeming changes the appearance of one person per 2 levels. That's great for your strike force trying to go in and get information or trying to explore your enemy's camp and come back with a map. Shadow Evocation mimics evocation spells below 5th level, but only at 20% real. That's good if you're a dedicated illusionist, but not great. Definitely not the best for a military battle, a warfare battle. Necromancy. Blight withers one plant or deals 1d6 per level damage to a plant creature. That can be useful. Magic Jar enables possession of another creature. That can be real useful if you need to trap something that is not going your way. And then you can release it later, which would be hilarious. Symbol of Pain. Triggered rune wrecks creature with pain. If it works like the symbol of sleep, then it is very useful. So let's look that up. Symbol of Pain. Creatures within the radius of this suffer racking pains, imposing a -4 to attack roll, skill checks, and ability checks. This effect lasts for 1 hour until the creature moves further than 60 feet from the symbol. So everyone within 60 feet of the symbol is affected. There is no hit dice restriction or limit on this one. That can be very useful. Waves of fatigue. Several targets become fatigued. That's good because it gives the enemy penalty. Animal growth. One animal doubles in size. That's not that good. But individually, like I said, outside of warfare, individually, that's a good spell. Baleful polymorph turns subject into harmless animal. But then again, it's one target, so as a war spell, not that great. Beast shape 3, you take the form of a diminutive or a huge animal, or a small or medium magical beast. You give beast shape to a couple of your forces, have them turn into something huge, and start wreaking havoc. For the most part, if they aren't very successful, they will sow chaos for the first few rounds, but they'd probably be taken down because they'd be outnumbered. That said, the amount of chaos they do, if that's enough for your regular forces to take control of the battle, it's well worth it. Elemental Body 2 turns you into a medium elemental. Be about as good as Beast Shape, so if you could give that to a handful of your soldiers and have them turn into a medium-sized elemental and then attack the enemy forces, eventually, unless the enemy forces aren't using magical weapons and the medium one's immune or damage reduction to stuff that's not magical, I have to look that up. It's been a minute. Then that would give you advantage to destroying a chunk of that military. Fabricate transforms raw materials into finished items. That'd be a great way to make money in addition to the other way to make money. Overland flight. You fly at speed of 40 feet and can hustle over long distances. That would be great for transporting individuals a good distance to get you to travel. So if you could give access to your military one-use items of that, all of a sudden their fly speed's 40 feet and they can hustle, which means they can double move for long distances. Let's look that one up. Let's figure out how that one actually works. Overland flight lasts 1 hour per level, so it's going to last 11 hours by the time you can give this as an item to somebody. So 11 hours of flight. And they can hustle, so they can move twice their movement. So you can cover 64 miles in 8 hours. So that would roughly, and you'd be able to go almost 4 more hours. So you'd almost be able to increase that by half. So if you could give access to your military and one-use items, as expensive as that would be, there again, remember the infinite money thing that I just told about, that would probably really, really break where you could attack your enemies from. You could also transport your forces from your capital to the battlefield within days if it's on the other side of the kingdom or on the other side of the country. Pass wall creates passage through wood or stone wall. Real good in getting into structures. That I could see give, if that works as a doorway, I'd give that as one-use items to the military. If it does not, I would give that to your strike force for sure. Pass wall. Effect 5 foot by 8 foot opening, 10 foot deep, plus 5 foot deep per 3 additional levels. Duration 1 hour per level. Creates a passage through wooden, plaster, or stone walls, but not through metal or other hard materials. If the wall's thickness is thicker than the depth that this spell can create, then you might have to cast the spell multiple times. But it lasts an hour per level. So you can essentially come to your enemy's fortress and cast Pass Wall on a wall and get access. He has big, strong metal doors. You go to the wall next to it and create this passageway that you all can go through. So that can be very useful to get your military in, especially if you can give that as one use item to a handful of guys. You can create multiple entrance ways into the enemy's fortress and avoid the normal traps that they have stationed for you. Plant shape 1 turns you into a small or medium plant. Not that great, but if it'll distract the enemy and if it has cool abilities, I'd use it. Polymorph gives one willing subject a new form. That could be useful if you could turn it into something bigger or as powerful as beast shape. Telekinesis moves object, attacks creatures, or hurls object or creatures. That'd be good if you could lift something really heavy up and hurl it at the enemy's forces. Or even pick up, say, more or less picking up the object and hurling it at the enemies is the best move for it. But you could also pick up other things and come up with other uses. So I don't see how that could be a bad spell. Transmute mud to rock. Transforms 2 10-foot cubes per level. And then the opposite of that spell, transform rock to mud. The rock to mud would be very useful because now you have a muddy terrain for your enemies to walk through. But you have to be on a rocky surface to begin with. Or you have to be using it inside their fortress or as the enemy comes into your fortress. Because mud will definitely slow down your enemy's forces. Now, if you're on a muddy battlefield and you don't want your forces to be in the mud, turning the mud to rock would give them solid ground to stand on. So both of those are very useful. Both of those are also very useful against rock and mud golems, though mud golems are very rare. Permanency makes certain spells permanent. That one is, as I said, required with major creation to do what you need to do to really amp up the amount of money your party has access to. These are the 5th level spells for a wizard and a sorcerer, so 5th level arcane spells. It's only ones in the core book, so after I go over 6th level arcane spells and 5th and 6th level divine spells, we will pick up, say, Advanced Player's Guide, get through those spells, Ultimate Magic Guide, go through those spells. If there's any spells in the Ultimate Combat book, we'll go through them, the Occult book, and we'll just compile a list of all these spells, and we'll go back and we might do a couple of episodes where we start combining some of these spells from the other levels together to figure out what interesting and cool effects, or we might pick a theme and dive into all the spells that would help or change how a battle would go in that theme. Say, if I was doing ship-to-ship combat, how would these spells work? Which spells would I use? So on and so forth. So hopefully this is inspiring you guys to really think about how to use these spells outside of the regular D&D combat. That was my goal when I set it out on all this. So until we meet again.